Boom.
Boom.
Hello and welcome to Motivation and Money with me, Mark Terrell, and my co-host Fanny Snaith. How are you today,
Good.
Fanny?
How am I? I'm excellent, although a little frazzled
Okay. Why is that? You've got a lot on at the moment, have
because because as so many people do, when you're starting to set up running a course or doing a launch of your course, you have if you don't go and hire loads of help, you end up with a huge plate of stuff to do, and things just become complicated, don't they?
you?
And like setting up webinars, setting up web pages, setting up sales pages, setting up this, that, and the other, and it all becomes very busy. And when you're talking about motivation, if that is not your core skill and not something that is really the best use of your time, you can get frustrated, frazzled, and demotivated very quickly. And thinking about the motivation, I'll be honest with you, actually, I quite like fiddling about with web pages. I do actually. If I allow myself the time, I actually quite enjoy it. But the frustration has been this week in the fact that I'm motivated to get it all going. But I've been coming up against obstacles along the way. And whilst I'm also got in the side of my mind that I really need to talk to people and actually not try and sell this course by telepathy.
Yeah.
I've got to get bums on seats through.
Yeah, you've got to get the message out there. However uncomfortable it feels, you've got to keep banging the drum.
Do you know what? I love banging the drum because, so for instance, I had a call with a lady last week and she'd submitted her money type quiz results to me, and they showed some very active, unwanted money types. We've talked about the money types before. There was the innocent, there was the victim, there was the fool, there was all sorts. And I phoned her up and I just said, hi, you feel like you did your money type quiz, you asked for a consultation. Do you want to have a chat now? I'm just here, I had some time, so I phone you, or do you want me to go away and we'll book something? And she goes, I want you to go away and I never want to speak to you ever again. And I said, okay. So I'm looking at your quiz results here, and I can honestly understand why you're saying that to me, but I'm only here to help. I'm not going to judge you, and come on, let's do it. So we talked about it, and at 23 minutes later, she signed up to my course.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
And she said to me, Fanny, you really do change people's lives, don't you? And I went,
fabulous.
My name is please.
Fabulous. So if you're intrigued about Fanny's course, you will have been mentioning it several times during this conversation, I'm sure. And also, because that's fine.
Every other word.
And also at the end, there'll be a link that you can find Fanny's website. It's on the credits, I was going to say, well, they're sort of the last thing that we put out. And also, so check that out. And Fanny's marvellous at money.
I'm also going to be doing a webinar next week as well, which is going to sort of be an introduction to the 8 money types and how you can see what the drivers are that are holding you back from financial success, and how you can take the first steps to change that, because it's what we want, right? We want to be in control of our money rather than it being in control of us.
Most definitely. Now, today, what we're going to talk about? Well, actually, what we're going to talk about is away from and towards. So this is connotations with motivation, and obviously with money. We have. So I've got a couple of stories I've worked with my clients and what's come out of their motivational map, which is, it's not all about money, but there are certain things around the how we act and how people perceive us. That's the key here. So the first one I'm going to talk to you about is nothing. This person is not motivated by money. But actually was motivated more by security, and it was his actions that was being picked up by his team. So I'm just going to share the motivational map model again, as we so that everybody that's not seen it before. My screen's just gone off, and we don't want that one. So the model we talk about are the 9 motivations to work, which is the motivational map model, and these are the 9 motivations. And if you want to know more about these, then there's previous episodes, so we're not going to dive too much into these 9 motivators, but I'm just going to pick some out and just tell you how they can affect the way we sort of act. So we all have all these 9 motivators inside us, but the key is to know which ones are really driving us, the most important ones for us in the moment, in this present moment. So the one I'm going to talk about is the defender motivator. So this is about security, predictability, and stability. So this is about keeping things stable and the same, really. So change is not really on the agenda here. It's about consolidating. And this is a motivator that comes up too often with regards to entrepreneurs. But this client I'm going to talk to you about he had been running a business for at least 10 years, successfully, always made a profit. He had, obviously, as you know, businesses go through these cycles of growth and decline and what have you. That's sort of natural. But he had a thing about money in that he wanted to make sure that he didn't want anybody to owe him money, and he didn't want anybody to he didn't want to owe anybody money himself. So there's just like this thing about money was that he wanted to make sure that the money was in his possession. And because of this, his actions were that he'd always talk about money, constantly talk about money, asking his team, have so-and-so paid? Is that money, we've received that payment, blah, blah, blah. So the message he was sending to his team was that he was absolutely a fanatic about money. So and the impression he was given to his team when we did the motivational exercise with the whole team, the team, pretty much all of them said to me, yeah, the boss, he's just money mad. He doesn't stop talking about money. And I said, well, that's interesting because I know that he's not driven by money. So the interesting conversation that came about after we sort of dived into this was that it was something in his past, which I'm not going to divulge, just in case anyone can sort of add up the dots. Basically, it was something in his past that basically made him do things with regard to his business, which were about securing his money, making sure money was in the bank to pay his bills. He never wanted to be in a position where he didn't have the money to pay, and that was his biggest fear. So he wasn't moving towards having lots of money. He was moving away from not having enough money to pay his bills.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
So it's an interesting scenario, isn't it? Because we think that when people are just talking about money, they think that that's what's driving them. But actually, in this case, it wasn't.
Well, you're absolutely right. And the interesting part, I mean, because this for me is probably the cornerstone, the first stone of my financial journey. When I think I said it before, when I was 10 years old, standing in the free school dinner queue at school, extremely angry, having just left a boarding school, because we lost all our money because my stepfather was blackmailed. It was then I made that decision that I said that I was never going to be beholden to anybody for money, and I was going to become a millionaire. That's what I said at 10. I didn't even really know what it meant or anything, but that was it. And from that moment on, my motivation towards becoming wealthy was an away from, it wasn't towards. I didn't think about what would happen if I became a millionaire. I didn't think about that was all linked to security. And interestingly enough as well, is that if you're linked to security, of having that crutch, as it were, or that feeling of safety, which money doesn't really bring you that much feeling, because anybody can come along and take away your money, as I found out, to our detriment. Just because I was going to amass this money didn't necessarily mean that having it was safety. Somebody probably said to your client, by the way, never a borrower nor a lender be.
Probably.
That's a nice one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So so just keep it stuck, stagnant.
Well, the interesting thing there was that he was my fastest ever payer. Like I send him my invoice today, and the next day he paid me.
Yeah, but he would be, because he just wants the transaction done.
Yeah.
Because it's opening the door, close the door.
Yeah.
Open the door, close the door.
Yeah. So you can imagine the conversation I had from then on. Is that actually healthy for your business? Is it helping you progress the business? Is that actually becoming a real barrier for your progress? And it was. He put up his hand and said, "Look, this is always going to be something that I sort of going to sort of."
Well, there's a statement.
Struggle with.
This is always something I'm going to struggle with. What he needs is a money coach.
Yeah, he did at the time. If only I knew you then, Fanny. Whenever it was. Gosh, a good 5 or 6 years ago. So
exactly, but this is the thing, right? And it was the same. It was the same with me as well. If it's like I inherit this from my father, who's the same, who money for security and got to look after money. He came from quite a poor family,
Mm-hmm.
and you only want to open the safe, take out, put in, shut the door again. So really, that whole length of transaction is just done as quickly and as neatly as possible, which I suppose then doesn't give, no, it doesn't allow for things to go wrong, I suppose. Right, I've done that. And also it's you've checked it off in your mind. I mean, I remember once one of my bosses, who, when I used to do his bookkeeping, he used to say to me, Fanny, how much money have we got in the bank? He was a proper tyrant. Fanny, how much money have we got in the bank? And I would turn around and I would say to him, well, do you want cleared balance or how much money there is in the bank right now? Because I knew that we sort of lived on a bit on the edge. Just tell me how much money's in the bank account. And I go, right, as of now, it's this amount of money. Ooh, like this, but we all know there's a cleared balance and a balance at the moment. And I suppose for him, with his safety, if you're going to be little old King Cole counting your pennies and all that kind of stuff to satisfy that feeling of security and safety, you can't afford to have uncleared balance in this. You just want to keep it all in a nice, neat box, don't you?
Yeah.
So
if anybody's just joined us, just to recap, we're talking about away from and towards motivations, and also we're going to talk about that in the context of money whenever we can. Because it's interesting how people move towards having enough and away from not having enough. So another story that I've had, and it's this interesting, and this you'll be able to give more information on this. So this is the one that's most associated with money. So it's the one that most people have a bit of a pullback from when we start talking about what the builder is their strongest driver. Sometimes they sort of start thinking about, or tell me, it's not all about money. And I say, well, that's fine. I'm sure it isn't just about money. This isn't telling me that your life is just generated, that's all about money. It's telling me that the strongest driver in your business at the moment is money, and how we look at it and how you can make sure that is being fulfilled in your business. But when we go into that, towards and away from, we're starting to get into the values behind that, and that's what people get a bit uncomfortable about. So that's why they're thinking or want to justify that money isn't the only thing that they think about. And so when this happens, I say, look, you don't have to justify the money drive, and actually it's a good thing to have. If you're in business, you need to have a drive for money. You're going to have a clear commercial focus. So if you've got a lack of drive for money, then that could be one of your potential blind spots or Achilles heels or whatever you want to call it. And so we'll have to address that. But in this case, you don't, because you're focused on generating money. So that's not going to be an issue for you. So let's make sure you make the most of that. And the success that will come from focusing on the commercial side of your business. So turning it into a positive, but not really wanting to get into that conversation. I don't want to delve into that conversation about why too soon, because it's not really relevant. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It does make sense. I mean, I suppose from my point of view, I'd be thinking that it's really relevant.
Yeah. Well, it's irrelevant to their actions and what they're taking. The actions they're taking, it's all leads on to that or comes from that. So the things that they do. So when we're thinking about something, if the first thing we think about with an opportunity is how much money we can make, that's fine, because we can commercially be very savvy around that. If it's the thing that's least important to us, then it's the thing that's least on our checklist to us as to what we want to get from this opportunity. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. It does make sense. Yeah. I think yes, it is. It is interesting. It is interesting. But how important? I do wish though that people would be a little more courageous in owning their desire for money. In the fact, we're told that it's, the filthy rich and all this kind of stuff and blah, 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 blah. And we are given so many messages about being wealthy. And I do I think life would be a little bit simpler if people were able to own their desire a bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people are very, very, very happy to announce on January the 1st, this is the year when I'm going to reach tip top fitness and health. But, you know, you could go in and you go, I am seriously healthy and fit. Finally, after all this time, I've done it, right? You would never do that about money, would you?
No.
People would just think you're simply weird. But
yeah, I mean, we don't like people showing off, do we? That they've got lots of, you know, material things. There's something about that people tend to not like.
well, it usually comes probably from a base of jealousy, right? It's you're instead of just being it's like the same thing. If you see somebody, again, if you see somebody who goes on a diet, or a friend of yours starts on a health kick, you're the first person down. Well, you may well be the first person down the line who's going to go on, have a cake, go on, trying to sabotage their progress.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what we do. And it comes from we are reflecting their success back on us and feeling inadequate in ourselves. I've been doing a course recently called How to Live in Joy. And it's sort of based on Buddhism. And we've been learning about mudita, which means being able to rejoice completely without any kind of links to anything else in other people's success. And I think that mudita is something that is quite rare in society. You know, for anything, whether it be wealth, health, wealth, relationships, anything, we tend to, you know, somebody goes, I'm going on a cruise in April. How often, genuinely, hand on heart, is it that you go, oh my God, that's amazing? Or do you think, I'm not going on a cruise. I want to go on a cruise. Why haven't I got a cruise booked? It's true, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And that is, and money fires that more than anything, doesn't it? It might, you know, especially having the money to do something or not being able to do something.
But yet, the cold light of day is that a huge percentage of us, when we have done that, they've got it, do absolutely sweet Fanny Adams or very little to do anything about it. I mean, the number of times that you see people flicking through the pages of Hello magazine, looking at the celebrity lifestyles, and, you know, maybe pointing out a wrinkle on the back of someone's knee or something. Oh, well, they've got a wrinkle on the back of their knee, or having that sort of those jealousy vibes going in, and then not doing anything to change the situation for yourself without question. Because I know that it's very difficult sometimes to change that motivation to actually want to do that, which brings us back to our towards and our away from. And you said something at the beginning that I wanted to pick up with you. Is that you said about the guy who seemed to be obsessed about money and how others perceived him, how his employees perceived him, etc. I think one of the really, really, really important things when it comes to money, when it comes to anything really, and change, is to understand what your identity is of yourself in that particular thing. How do you perceive yourself? How do you see your identity? How do you identify with health, with wealth, etc.? Because if you're going to be conscious and awareness of what's a trait that might not be particularly attractive, like a open shut safe scenario like you were talking about, I think you really do have to become aware of where you are at the moment, because if not, you'll just try to do new things and then you'll just get snapped back with an elastic band to where you were beforehand. It comes down to that be do have we've spoken about before. But I personally, from the away from, I have recently realized how awfully horribly focused I have been on an away from rather than a towards.
Oh, interesting.
And very much so. And so, for instance, the whole of my journey of becoming wealthy, there you go, I said it has been on an away from mentality. because I didn't want to be in the situation that we were in when we were children, which is absolutely penniless.
Yeah.
It wasn't about because I want to have this and I want to have that and I want to do the others. And actually, to my detriment, really, and this is one of the reasons why now I focus on the financial adventure, trying to make it fun. Because if you're trying to make something fun, you really have to turn away from mentality.
Right.
Because it's never really fun running away.
That's interesting. That is like so going back to the drive that you have, and I've come across people that have really got a drive for money, and not because they want to be, millionaires, but they have a drive because of something's happened similar to you have. But yeah, it comes to a point where it becomes, it just becomes all-consuming, doesn't it? And that's where we need to check in.
And that's where you can move into tyrants.
Yeah.
So we talked about the money types before.
Yeah.
It's okay. So you can be, let's victim. Oh, poor me. Here I am, not really doing anything about it. I want to move away from there. Let's say we do it from away from motivation. So we go to warrior, going, oh, well, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to be back there anymore. And then if we start to then go towards, we go towards magicianship, which is, hey, everything flows, everything's brilliant. But what you also need to be careful of is you can go from warrior, where that fear embeds even harder, and then you get into tyrant, where you become secretive, controlling, manipulative when it comes to money.
Right.
We generally link it with a fear of never having enough, that has always got to be more.
Yeah.
However, it can be quite subtle. So, it can be with the controlling of it. Well, if I give them a budget for a coffee budget of £40 a month, I can know that they're not going to spend, that's my control over it, which sort of sounds probably quite reasonable in the workplace. But when it comes into home, we're going, well, my partner tends to spend a lot on lottery tickets, so I'm going to give them a budget of £8 a month. That's one lottery ticket a week. That's a form of control through fear.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really what the basis of it is. And if you're going from an away from mentality, it's going to be based in fear. Yeah,
it's not wanting to experience whatever it is that's happened to you in the past.
That's right.
Reoccurrence is your focus. It's not allowing that to happen again, rather than going towards something that you want. And the more you talk about or think about, and I've read a lot about this recently, about the towards thing. It's and what you said is interesting. What you've admitted to being more of an away from, but now you're trying to be more towards, so that you can have joy and have a positive experience. Because when you think about, you're trying to avoid something all the time, it's almost like being chased, and it never really feels comfortable, does it? And you're always trying to, avoid what's going to catch you up at some point. So you're never going to feel comfortable in that position. So changing that.
You won't feel comfortable, except if it's so strong that it keeps you within your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you've got to a place whereby you've sort of it's at a safe enough distance, what you're running away from. So So, for instance, take it with money. So you have a motivation to not be poor. You get to a point where you've got a certain amount of money. And there the motivation can die, because you're okay, you're out of the danger sort of step, but you're in this thing of like, well, but we still can't really do that. We still can't do that. But to actually then suddenly go, well, hang on a minute, if I've achieved this, why can't I achieve that by doing it a towards? And that's where the mindset shift needs to come in, because you're no longer running away from, because you're at a safe distance.
Yeah.
You're in a sort of like, you're sitting in your own poo sort of thing. Because you're sort of there, you've got glass ceilings all around you, you're in your little glass box, but then you've got to break out of that to try and do it towards one. And then obviously you've got all the challenges of when you go for a towards motivation. Life, you have to keep yourself accountable, right?
Yeah.
Whereas running away seems sort of easier.
But also, our brains actually don't compute negative stuff. So if you keep thinking to yourself, I don't want something, it tends to find more of that for you. So this is where we can use our reticular activation system. I'm not really going to, that system, RAS, look it up.
Yeah.
We can train our brains to look for the things that we want, and it's when this kicks in when you are trying to look for something that you're going to make a purchase. The typical thing is you're going to buy a new car, and then you see that car everywhere, and so it's because you're thinking about something you want, and your brain is actually working for you to find those things. So if you set positive intentions about what you want, then your brain, and you tell your brain what you want, it will help you to find those things because it's been told that's what I want. So when you're in a positive moving towards, you're more likely to get the things that you want. If you're in that mindset of trying to get away from something all the time, so avoiding something, then you could find that actually that thing keeps coming towards you because you're telling your brain that that's something that you want, even though it's a negative thing.
And I mean, it's often described as, well, I like it the way to describe it, you have two ends of a stick, what you don't want and what you do want. There's always two ends of the stick, right? You can't have one end without the other end. So it's just, and I think you can sort of have that sort of balance. I won't be able to do that, but you can get to a sort of balancing point in the middle where you sort of focus on sort of both a bit and nothing, and you sort of end up just treading water, a drifter. You're just drifting, isn't it, really? And then, but then if you can actually literally turn away to and move away from, then things can happen quite a lot. But it takes work.
It does.
But it's like, you were absolutely right that the brain doesn't see negatives, and this is the thing. It's like if you've got a circumstance or something that's happened, or something, mostly if something's factual, it never becomes good and bad until you put an opinion on it anyway.
So, I mean, it's like selling a course. You don't like everyone to say no because it feels a bit crap, doesn't it? You want people to say yes all the time, but that's never going to be the case. You've just got to be resilient enough to know that not everyone's going to say yes.
Well, actually, I always remember Robin Waite. There we are. There's a first mention today. Robin Waite, and he always used to say, you get your algorithm of your sales. So he used to use 70-10-2. So you'd have 70 sort of like connections sort of out there, 10 conversations, proper conversations to get 2 clients. Right. So if you know that you've got to sort of come across, get 70 people on your radar, you actually want to have 60 no's, because the quicker you get those, you're going to get your 10 yeses.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've heard all sorts of stories about that. So I think Adam Brooks was another one or somebody in the sales academy said that if they hadn't made a certain number of calls, they had to sleep on the floor with no mattress that night.
Right.
I thought it was a bit extreme, but I get it. So
I think there's a book about that called Go for No, isn't there, or something like that? There's a philosophy around that. I'm pretty sure this is a long time ago, but I'm sure I've read a book about Go for No, because every no you get is moves you nearer to your next yes.
Yeah. It's just getting out there to people, and you never know, the person that said no might go down to the pub and might have a conversation with somebody. I had a nice chat with Mark today. What a lovely chap he is. Of course, wasn't for me, but it might be for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you just don't know, do you?
Exactly.
No, you never know. You never know.
We've run out of time again, unfortunately. Sorry for those that have joined. Hopefully, you'll catch up with this because we had a bit of a technical issue. We don't know what happened. We don't know what happened. We just lost our stream, so we had to restart. And this has probably got the we'll need to sort of bolt these two together, the two parts, which we'll do with the magic of technology.
When you say we.
Well, I will then, yeah. I will. And if you want to get this all in one go, then you can catch it either on my website or on Fanny's website. Did you put them on your website or on your YouTube, by the way?
Not on my website, but I've put one on YouTube. I've been meaning to do one per week because apparently that's what YouTube likes. And I need to remember to do that, actually. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, so you can
Before we go, I'm going to put the links underneath for both my webinar and my course, if you don't mind.
Definitely.
And that's good. Good.
Do that. Check that out. So this has been really good. I've really enjoyed our chat today. Unfortunately, it was broken up a little bit by our technology, but you've got to accept these things. it's not the end of the world. We survived. We're to carry on, and we'll hear hopefully for another time in the future. So thank you, Fanny, for today's discussion. Always a pleasure. Great to talk about, obviously, motivation and money all the time. If you catch this on the replay, then leave some comments, ask some questions, and it will be great. We'd really enjoy answering those questions. And you can catch the previous episodes on my website, which is the reluctantleader.academy. Go to the courses page and down to motivation. Go to my YouTube channel. Sorry, not on my website. And Fanny, yours is on the website as well, and on your YouTube channel, would you say? Yeah. So that's that. That's a wrap for this episode. If there's anything you want us to talk about with regards to motivation and money in future episodes, then please let us know. I think motivation and money comes into so many aspects of our business, careers, and lives that there's loads of things that we can talk about, and we'll give our spin on it based on our expertise in motivation or money. So, Fanny, anything else to say before we hang up?
Have a lovely rest of the week.
Indeed. See you all next time, everyone.